All right, so get this. Today, we're going to be like spelunking into some seriously deep stuff.
Sounds intense.
It is, kind of. We're talking about the Quran.
Okay.
And like its potential connections to, modern science.
Interesting.
You shared some excerpts from a text all about these Quranic miracles. And honestly, I'm pretty curious to like dive in.
I think you'll find it fascinating.
Yeah, I'm already intrigued.
Good.
Let's just jump right in. All right, let's start with aliens.
Aliens.
Yeah, Verse 42.29, it suggests there might be living creatures like all over, scattered throughout the heavens and earth. Did people even think about extraterrestrial life back then?
Well, the Quran doesn't specifically say aliens, like, the little green men we imagine today.
Right.
But it definitely emphasizes that Allah's creation. It goes way beyond what we can see or even comprehend.
Yeah.
And this idea of life, all throughout the cosmos, it actually aligns with something called the Drake equation.
Okay, the Drake equation. Now, remind me what that is again.
So it's basically a mathematical formula, and we use it to, estimate how many detectable civilizations might be out there in our galaxy. So it considers all these factors, like the rate of star formation,
right?
The fraction of stars that actually have planets, and then how many of those planets could actually support life.
Wow.
Yes, we had to figure out the probability of, us not being alone.
Right. Yeah, and with all those exoplanets that keep popping up.
Exactly.
In these potentially habitable zones, it's feeling more and more likely.
Yeah.
That there's got to be something out there. So is it possible that the Quran was hinting at this, vastness of life all those centuries ago?
I mean, it certainly opens it up to that interpretation, and it makes you wonder, does this ancient perspective, does it change how we look for extraterrestrial life today?
Totally adds a whole new, layer to it all. Okay, on to something that always, twists my brain into knots.
What's that?
Quantum physics.
Ah, yeah.
So the Quran talks about the unseen, things that are beyond our perception. It even mentions, 7 heavens created in layers in verse 67.3. Now, how does that connect with quantum physics?
Well, quantum physics is kind of all about challenging the way we think about reality.
Right.
So take, for example, particle duality.
Particle duality.
Yeah, so a particle, it can be a wave and a particle at the same time.
Wait, so it's both a wave and a particle at the same time?
Depends on how it's observed.
No way! That's wild.
Exactly. It defies logic.
Right.
And the whole idea of layers in the Quran,
yeah,
especially, the 7 heavens thing, it could connect to the idea of quantum layers or dimensions.
Okay.
Some physicists believe that, there might be more dimensions than the 3 we can perceive.
Wait, hold on. You're saying there could be other dimensions out there, hidden layers of reality.
It's a crazy concept, but it's something theoretical physicists are actually looking into. And some even think that when the Quran mentions the unseen, it might be alluding to these unseen dimensions.
That's intense.
Or even the multiverse. The idea that there are multiple universes just existing alongside each other.
Whoa, okay, that is some next level stuff right there. Let's switch gears for a sec.
Okay.
Talk about something a little more down to earth.
Sure.
Literally, water.
Right.
The stuff of life, we drink it every day. But in verse 21.30, the Quran says that all living things are made from water. I mean, yeah, everyone knows water is important, but is there something more to it? Does the Quran go deeper?
It's really interesting you bring that up.
Yeah.
Because the Quran doesn't just say that water is important. It actually claims that everything alive comes from it.
Huh.
And this aligns surprisingly well with modern science. I mean, just think about it. Our bodies are about 60% water.
That's true.
And it's essential for all our biological processes.
Yeah. That's actually pretty profound when you think about it that way. It's like the Quran is highlighting how, everything is connected through water.
Precisely. And it encourages us to, think about water's importance.
Yeah.
Beyond just the everyday stuff.
Okay, now for something a bit more medical.
Okay.
Verse 57.17 talks about Allah giving life to the earth after it was lifeless. Could this possibly relate to, medical technology at all?
That's an interesting thought. Think about it. We have technologies now, like ECMO, and that can actually oxygenate the blood.
Oh, wow.
And revive a stopped heart.
Wow.
It's like bringing something back to life after it was, lifeless.
See, you're saying there's a parallel there, like between reviving a dead heart and the earth coming back to life after being barren.
It's definitely a thought-provoking comparison,
Yeah.
and it makes you wonder, could this idea of revival also apply to the, spiritual heart, which is something that comes up a lot in the Quran?
Now, that is an intriguing thought. Speaking of big, profound concepts, let's get into the universe's fate. Verse 21.104, it describes the heavens folding like a scroll.
Okay.
And then, this repetition of creation.
Sounds pretty cosmic.
It does, right. And this imagery, it actually lines up with a super fundamental law of physics.
Which is?
The law of thermodynamics.
Oh, right.
And that law states that energy can't be created or destroyed, only transformed. So it's like the universe's energy is always being, recycled and repurposed.
So are you saying that the Quran is suggesting this cyclical view of the universe, like creation and destruction happening over and over again?
Exactly. The cyclical view actually fits with some modern cosmological theories, like the Big Bounce theory, which proposes that the universe, expands and contracts over time.
Leading to these repeated cycles of creation.
Exactly.
Whoa, a cosmic dance of, expansion and contraction.
I know, right? It's wild. Okay, are you ready for, a cosmic curveball?
Hit me with it.
All right, what about the shape of the Earth?
Oh, verse 79.3, it uses this word daha to describe it.
Aha.
What does that even mean?
So daha can be understood as, spreading out or making X-shaped. And what's interesting is that actually kind of lines up with the Earth's real shape.
Yeah.
Which is an oblate spheroid.
An oblate spheroid.
Slightly flattened at the poles and bulging at the equator.
Hold on. Are you telling me that, the Quran described the Earth's shape as an oblate spheroid way before scientists figured it out?
Well, not in those exact words.
Right.
But the description of daha does match up with the Earth's actual shape. It makes you think, how do they know that back then?
That is some serious food for thought. Okay, last one for this section.
Okay.
Embryology.
Right.
So verses 23.1314, they talk about bone formation happening before flesh during, human development.
Interesting.
Does modern science actually support that? Actually, it does. Modern embryology confirms that, the skeletal system develops before the muscle tissue. And this is something we only figured out recently, thanks to, all the fancy imaging techniques.
So the Quran accurately described this, super specific detail about human development centuries before we even had the tech to see it.
It really is a remarkable observation. And it, raises all these questions about where this knowledge came from.
Yeah.
And how it fits with what we know from modern science.
It's amazing. Whoa, I am seriously blown away, for real. We've gone from aliens to quantum physics,
Right.
the Earth's shape, and then embryology.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and every single time, there's this crazy connection between the Quran
Yeah.
and modern science.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It really is. It's like the Quran is, I don't know, encouraging us to see the world in a whole new way,
You're onto something there.
This whole conversation, it's making me rethink, that whole religion versus science thing.
Oh, yeah.
I used to think they were totally opposed,
Right. Right.
but the stuff we've been talking about,
Yeah.
it feels like they can coexist, maybe even, complement each other,
It's a complex issue.
Oh, totally.
But what's so interesting is that the Quran itself,
Yeah.
it actually encourages, observation,
Right.
reflection, seeking knowledge.
I see.
It doesn't present itself as, against science.
Right.
Some would even say it promotes it.
So instead of seeing science and religion fighting it out,
Right.
maybe it's more about realizing that there are different ways of trying to understand the same thing,
Yeah, I like the way you put that.
Each offers a different lens.
Yeah, Dag.
And if you combine those lenses, maybe you can get a deeper, richer understanding of everything.
Absolutely.
Using a telescope and a microscope on the same, I don't know, object.
Yeah.
Each one shows you something different,
Exactly.
but together they give you the full picture.
I like that it shows how valuable it is to be open
Right.
to different perspectives, different approaches.
One thing that really strikes me about these Quranic miracles
Yeah.
is it's just the range of stuff they cover.
Yeah.
We've just barely scratched the surface here.
Right.
And we've already gone from cosmology to biology
That's pretty insane.
to the nature of reality, you know?
It's what makes it so interesting to explore.
Totally.
It's not about proving or disproving anything.
Right.
It's about seeing how much knowledge is in the Quran
Yeah.
and how that intersects with how we understand the world.
Okay, but let's be real.
Okay.
Are these connections, are they just like coincidences?
Go ahead.
Or is there something like more to it?
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is. It really is.
There's no easy answer.
Right.
I mean, some people might see these connections as like proof
Yeah.
of divine inspiration, confirming the Quran as a revealed text.
And for some people, it would strengthen their faith.
Exactly. But other people might see it differently.
Right.
They might see it as examples of like human ingenuity,
Mm-hmm.
our ability to find patterns, find meaning,
Right.
even if those patterns aren't, objectively true.
So how do we navigate these different takes?
I think we have to acknowledge
Yeah.
and respect
Yeah.
those different viewpoints.
Right.
Ultimately, everyone has to decide what they believe.
I hear that.
But I think no matter what,
Yeah.
there's value in engaging with these ideas,
Totally.
exploring those connections.
Yeah, it's through these explorations, that we
Mhm.
can challenge our own assumptions,
Right.
expand our horizons,
Exactly.
maybe even understand ourselves
Yeah.
and the universe, like, better.
I agree.
It feels like we've covered so much, but we've only just started to uncover these potential connections.
There's definitely a lot more to explore,
Yeah.
both within the Quran and in, science, which is always changing.
Right.
It's like we've opened this door
Yeah.
to a massive library of knowledge.
I love that.
And there are just countless books waiting to be discovered.
This has been so mind-expanding.
Good, I'm glad.
I'm really curious to see what else is out there.
Yeah, me too.
Of all the Quranic miracles we've talked about,
Mm.
is there one that, stands out to you?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
They all offer something unique.
Right.
But if I had to pick, I think that connection between, the Quran's description of creation
Yeah.
and the laws of thermodynamics,
Yeah.
that's super fascinating to me.
I could see why.
It suggests that there was this deep understanding
Right.
of how energy and matter are connected, which is at the core of physics today.
Yeah, it's like the Quran was hinting at this fundamental principle centuries before we even knew what that was.
Exactly. It shows how powerful observation is.
Right.
Reflection and just the human ability to grasp these huge truths about the world.
It really makes you wonder.
It does, doesn't it?
My mind is buzzing with new ideas and questions.
That's what it's all about.
It's crazy how a text from so long ago
Yeah.
can spark such profound insights.
It reminds us that wisdom can be found anywhere
Right.
and that knowledge really doesn't have boundaries.
Well said. I think we've given our listener a lot to chew on here.
We have.
Maybe it'll even inspire them to keep exploring these connections themselves. I have a feeling they will. We've only scratched the surface.
We have.
There's so much more to discover.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up this deep dive by
Okay.
looking at some of the bigger implications of these connections. So we're back. And I don't know about you, but my brain is still processing all these connections we've been talking about.
I know, right?
It's intense.
It's really fascinating to see how these ancient verses, line up with modern science.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think about the universe and where we fit into it all.
Totally. It's like looking at something you thought you knew and then bam, you see all these new details.
Mm-hmm.
So let's zoom out a bit. Big picture time.
Okay.
What are the bigger implications of these Quranic miracles?
Well, for me, one thing that really stands out is how it can help build bridges between different ways of thinking.
I see that.
So often, it's science versus religion.
Yeah, they're always fighting.
Right, battling for the truth. But the stuff we've been talking about, it suggests that maybe they can get along,
Right.
even work together.
Yeah, it's not about who's right or wrong. It's more about, recognizing that each perspective has something to offer.
Exactly.
What do you think?
I totally agree. The Quran encourages us to think critically, observe, and, search for knowledge.
Right.
It doesn't shy away from scientific inquiry.
Yeah.
In fact, you could say it embraces it as a way to deepen our understanding of creation.
That's powerful, especially nowadays when everything feels so divided.
Yeah.
Maybe exploring these connections between, ancient wisdom and modern science can help us find some common ground.
I hope so. By recognizing those threads that connect different beliefs and areas of study, we might start seeing more connections than conflicts.
Right. Okay, so beyond like starting conversations and understanding, are there any other implications that come to mind when you think about these Quranic miracles?
Well, for people who find meaning in the Quran, these connections can strengthen their faith.
It's like seeing their beliefs reflected in the world around them.
Right. And it can also deepen their appreciation for, like, the intricacies of creation.
Yeah, it must be like really awe-inspiring to see how these ancient teachings align with what we're discovering through science.
It is. But even for those who, aren't religious, exploring these connections can still be really, like, intellectually stimulating.
Oh, yeah,
It
totally.
challenges us to think outside the box, consider different perspectives.
Yeah, and just be open to the idea that, like, there's more to the universe than we might realize at first glance.
Well said.
It's crazy to me how much we can still learn from these, like, ancient texts.
It's a good reminder that learning never really stops.
Yeah.
And as science keeps advancing, who knows what other connections we'll find.
Yeah. I'm kind of excited to see what the future holds. All right, so as we wrap up this amazing deep dive, let's leave our listener with a final thought, a question to ponder.
Okay.
Does the Quran offer like a unique perspective on scientific discoveries, or are we just seeing interesting coincidences? What are your thoughts?
That's a tough one.
Yep.
It's really up to each individual to decide what they believe. There's no right or wrong answer. For me, the beauty is in the exploration,
Yeah.
questioning, engaging with these ideas with an open mind and heart.
I love that. And at the end of the day, whether these connections like strengthen someone's faith, spark their curiosity, or even like challenge their worldview, they show us that knowledge is interconnected
Yeah.
and that the universe and ourselves are full of mysteries.
Well said. It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise. And to our listeners, keep searching, keep questioning, and never lose that sense of wonder. The journey of discovery, that's what makes life so incredible.